Welcome to Just the Two of Us Homestead. We are Colleen and Frank, and we live in the perfect size homestead just for us in southwestern Quebec. Gardening, growing food, and preserving is one of our passions. And our barn animals, we love them so much, they're just like pets. And we're so fortunate to be able to live our lives as we do. Each and every day is a blessing. Hi, everyone. Probably just like you, we are starting to get overloaded with zucchini, which to me is never a problem. We like it. We eat it as a vegetable, and I love to bake with it. So today I'm going to go make my mom's chocolate zucchini cake. It's another vintage recipe. And if you can see how well loved this recipe is, this is just what I picked from yesterday and today. And it's from one plant except for this one. This is a cocoselle. A friend of mine gifted me the seeds. And we're going to try this one for supper. We've never had this kind before. So we're having a stir fry for supper. So that's what's up for dinner. So this recipe takes 2 cups of shredded zucchini. So it's a great way to use up the zucchini. It makes the moistest chocolate cake. You don't really see the zucchini at all, so kids or anybody won't see it. And it doesn't need an icing. You're going to sprinkle chocolate chips on top before it gets baked, so you don't even have to put an icing. It makes a 13 by 9, so it makes a really big cake. And the first thing I'm going to do, though, before I even shred the zucchini, is it takes half a cup of sour milk. So I'm just going to I put half a cup of milk. I'm just going to put like maybe half a teaspoon of vinegar. If I do this very carefully, half to 3/4 of a teaspoon of vinegar in the milk. Give it a little stir. And I'll just let that sit while I'm shredding the zucchini. I've already washed them. So I'm just going to shred them. I'll see if I need this guy. I'm never sure with my measurements. I guess I can keep him whole. And when I'm baking, like making a cake or whatever, I'm not pressing hard to make thick pieces. I prefer it to just be light pieces, especially if you're baking for kids and you don't really want them to see or feel the texture of the zucchini, which they really won't in this recipe, but if you're trying to hide it, that's just a tip. Try and make the pieces as small as possible. Because I do have a grinder thing that will do the zucchini in no time, but it makes the pieces really thick, which is good for when I make the zucchini burgers, which I've already made. We've already enjoyed them. And I can put a card up here with that video if you want to check it out. Oh, I think this zucchini will be enough. Okay, I just cleaned up my mess from the shredding because I made a mess. I measured in a regular measuring cup, 2 cups, and I just stuck it in here so it's all together. Now it says half a cup of soft margarine, and my mother did use margarine. That's all she ever used because a large family, butter was expensive, but I'm using butter. So it's more than room temperature. It's like pretty soft. And even though the house is air conditioned, it's still 5,000 degrees because I don't know about where you guys are living. It is so hot. Okay, now we need 1 3/4 cups of sugar. Like, it is terribly hot outside and humid. No breeze, nothing. So we're just going to cream that a little bit, and we're going to add some oil, eggs, vanilla, and then our zucchini, and then the dry ingredients. And half a cup of, it's so old, it says, oh, vegetable oil. Doesn't mean it's necessarily old, but that's what my mom would have used. I'm just using olive oil. And 2 eggs. And a teaspoon of vanilla. Or more. I always do that. Yeah. And the milk. And it's gotten like a little bit thicker from souring it. And that's it for our wet ingredients. I mentioned my brother when I was making the chocolate chip it squares. Well, my same brother, when my mother made this recipe, again, when he was little, although I think this fell into his teens as well, he loved this cake, but he never knew there was zucchini in it. She only made this cake when, let's say, we were at school or whatever, because if he knew there was zucchini in it, he wouldn't eat it. But he could never tell there was, and no one ever told him, and he enjoyed it every single time. Okay, time for the dry ingredients. Now, most cake recipes say to always put your dry ingredients in a separate bowl. This one doesn't, and I never saw my mom do it. So I'm putting it all in the same bowl. So 2.5 cups of flour. There we go. But I will pile everything on top of the flour. Oops, I just covered the recipe. 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Oops. 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. And 1/2 teaspoon of cloves, which I will go very light on. And there's no salt, which I'm surprised at, but just for good luck, I'm adding a sprinkle. And then we just stir that together and add our zucchini. And that's it. All in one bowl. No mixers, no nothing. I didn't even put on my apron because that would have been an extra layer of clothing and it's just too hot. So I can't see right now if I've made a mess on myself, but all that mixed up. Now we add our zucchini. So that used that whole medium-sized zucchini, and I got 2 cups out of it. Smells good, the spices. Oh my gosh, I forgot the cocoa. Oh, it's not a very good chocolate cake without the cocoa, eh? How much? 4 tablespoons. You might look different. I was just going to say I better check the recipe to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm using like a good cocoa, not like the Hershey stuff. It should have gone in with the dry ingredients, but better late than never. Oh my gosh. The heat's gone to my head. And it gets darker as it cooks. Can't believe I forgot the cocoa. It's still going to work out. So I'm just spraying a 9 by 13. And it is a truly moist chocolate cake. Make sure I got it all combined now that I messed up. It's a very light batter, even though there's lots of zucchini in there. It's like fluffy despite the zucchini. You don't have to be fancy. It'll level itself off when it's cooking. Now for the chocolate chips that we're going to put on the top, there's no measurement. It just says put chocolate chips on top. So I'm going to pour some into a cup, and then now I just spilt them everywhere. I can eyeball it to know what it looks like, how my mother made it. And I'd say she used about a cup, I can tell already. You don't press them in or anything, you just leave them on the top as is. She probably used even a bit less. She was very conservative with some of her ingredients. Cover top a cake with chocolate chips. Bake at 325 for 40 to 45 minutes. So I'll check it at 40 because ovens vary. And that's my mom's chocolate zucchini cake, almost just a zucchini cake. So I'll put it in the oven. And after I put it in, I'm going to go get my mom's box of recipes, or the rest. It's not her box of recipes. After she passed away and we were emptying out her house and everything, I took most of her recipes. She had them in several places, but I knew where she kept like all the treasured ones. And at that time, I had 4 sisters, and kept saying, does anyone want the recipes? And they're all saying, no, 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 no. So I said, fine, I'll take them all. Not that I even wanted to make them all, but most of them are in her handwriting and stuff. And they said they didn't want them. So I took them all and I just stuck them all into the box. And I still want to organize them nicely and everything. And I get to look at her handwriting and all that. But I can't tell you how many times my sisters have called or messaged me, oh, can you give me the recipe for mom's this? Can you give me the recipe for mom's that? So I'm glad I kept them for me, but I'm glad I kept them for my sisters and even my nieces and that have messaged me for recipes. So I'm so happy I've kept them, and now I get to share them with you. So I'm going to put this in the oven, and I'll be right back with the box of recipes. Sorry, I'm so hot. All right, so this is a box of my mom's recipes that I'll bring you in close in a minute so you can appreciate how old some of these are. What she would do in some of her favorites would clip out from newspapers from many, many years ago, or from like magazines or whatever. And she would keep them all, and she never kept them really organized. There was a drawer, a big drawer in our kitchen back at home that she kept all the recipes. Like, look, they're just well loved, well used. They're all old, used over and over and over. And I kept some of, she had many like cookbooks from like churches and stuff like that, church recipe books, some of our school recipe books. And she had flagged, obviously, like this page. She liked something on it a lot. I guess the apple squares or the butterscotch brownies, because that's very well used. And in most of the cookbooks that she had like this, she had the pages flagged, so I know which one she used the most. But there's just like, and some of them are written on tiny little cards, all in her handwriting, some of them from relatives and neighbors that I knew. Like my godmother, who like I just love so dearly. There's some in her handwriting in here for her rhubarb strawberry crisp and peach pie. And I was going through it getting the zucchini cake recipe. And so like they're all just like, and I really should take my time, go through it. But my own recipes aren't much that better organized. I do have a binder where, since we started homesteading, that I keep anything from that point on very well organized, like my bread making, my canning, my preserves, anything like that. But before that, all my older recipes, they're still like, I do have a little file thing like this too. Speaking of this, I did this for my mother. I'll show you. When I think I was about 11 or 12, on a little typewriter, you know, for us older folks, a typewriter, not a keyboard, a typewriter with a ribbon and ink. And it came in one of those suitcases that you lifted it up. And at that time, I went through and typed out all her recipes. Let's see if you can see that. And I don't know how often she went through and used them, because when I was going through that, I guess she didn't trust me very well, because I still found the written recipes of what I typed out in here. So I guess she didn't trust if I typed the accurate measurements, because a lot of what I typed in here is still in here. But even so, she's kept a lot in here as well. So like this one is my godmother's handwriting. And look at that, like just a chunk of paper. Anyway, so maybe it'll be fun. We'll go through, it's not all desserts. She has like a lot of good side dishes, a lot of like meat dishes and things like that, casseroles. And so maybe we'll just like pick a recipe, like a lotto. We'll pick something out of the box and see what we'll make. There's a lot that our family just loved over and over. Some that my mother continued to make that we really didn't have the heart to tell her so much that it wasn't our favorite. But anyway, they're all just cherished, beautiful recipes, and I really should go through them. And I'll have to do it with my own because they're not done either. So we have another half hour or so on the cake, and then we'll let it cool down and obviously give it a good taste test. I'm just going to check it with a toothpick. Smells so good. Perfect. So I did it for 40 minutes at 325. So I'll let it cool just a little bit. No icing, no nothing. Chocolate chips, some melt in, some stay on top. And we'll give it a taste test in just a little bit. It's still really hot, but we're going to cut into it anyway. And apparently me mixing up with the cocoa powder doesn't seem to have bothered it. I'm only taking a little piece. It's almost supper time. So save it for dessert. But I wanted to show you. I don't know if you can see how lovely and moist that is. Like, it's just divine. I'll take one for the team and try a piece for you. I dare you to look for a piece of zucchini in there. Do you see any green at all? Nothing. No one would ever know. And it's so moist. I don't know how, but it magically disappears. And it's a great way to use up your zucchini. And I have to think of a few other. It's never a problem. We hardly eat it all winter, so we enjoy it as much as we can right now. So I hope you give it a try. It's a really, really good cake. No icing. You can put as many chocolate chips on as you want. You could even put white chocolate chips. It's good either way. So thank you so much for spending time with me in my kitchen today. And until we're together again, take care.